There you go. Have to have my water from my big Bubba leaky shower cup. Set up the milking machine with a filter, a cloth filter in it, so it gets strained immediately as the milk comes through. And set the claws for closed, and they open up automatically when they attach to the teat. Here's BC waiting for his milk. And most of the time I use iodine as the sanitizer for the teats because I wasn't happy with the chlorhexidine. Spray. Some other goat keepers and myself felt that that spray was causing possibly more mastitis. So bleach water or strong iodine from Hager's Supply is what I have come to use, and plus some goats can have a deficiency in iodine, so this way their body takes up what they need. And especially this time of year with beautiful pasture, they don't need a whole lot of grain, but as they come in, the goats with the most production get the most amount of grain, but it's real obvious who needs more. I bring them in 2 at a time, and I set this to 0, and this one tells me how much the can weighs, and then of course from that I can figure out what the total intake of all the milk is, but I can measure 2 goats at a time, so I can figure out if everybody's feeling okay. It's just a good indication when their amount of milk changes quickly. Then I just bring them in 2 at a time from this little corral outside. I do need to get the strip cup out of the milk room.
Yeah.
Oh wow, I forgot what. Oh. Everything gets sanitized in the milk room, and that's where all the equipment dries overnight. I'm actually supposed to do one more step, which I don't do, and that is I'm supposed to sanitize this immediately before milking. But I have a problem with that because then there would be wet sanitizer in there to mingle with the milk. So that's the only thing that I don't do that I'm supposed to do. But I'll bring a couple in and hand milk them without the noise of the machine. Get out of there, chicken. Perfect. Come on, Bella. Come on. Good girl, Spice. Good girl. And in this bottle I just have Dawn dish detergent and water. It helps deter the flies a little bit. Cools the goats down. This is Mr. Brown's goat, Bella. She's half Nubian and half Saanen, and Spice is half Toggenburg, half Alpine. Everybody gets washed with a separate towel. I really seem to have no issues at all with mastitis, so I feel like these girls are happy and taking care of all of that naturally, which is good. They haven't needed any antibiotics. I just use some vitamins and minerals and lots of pasture, and when they tell me they need to get outside the fence, we go for a walk and they get what they need. Each teat is supposed to get 3 squirts just to get everything started and make sure there's no plug of dirt. My constant companion.
Can you show just one more time on her the anesthetic? I was on that tripod. I wasn't getting a good shot.
What I said about that?
Yeah, I just didn't get a good shot of you cleaning the teats and all that.
Oh, okay. Spice?
Either one, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay. Each of the goats gets washed with a separate towel, and I just turn it over for the other teat. Wherever I can, I try to save paper and conserve water. I try to only use what is absolutely necessary. Spice gets the same thing. I know that lots of people shave the goats and they shave the udders, but I just don't seem to have any problems with needing to do that. They just, like I said, I don't even do that if it's not necessary. I don't take them, just like the milk, I don't take the goats through any steps that they don't need to. No hoops to jump except for what's necessary. And they end up not looking like show goats, but I think they end up looking more like they're supposed to. Okay, and then they get 3 squirts from each teat into the strip cup. The strip cup has a strainer, and that way if there's any issue with clotted milk or milk that looks funny, it's going to show up on top of the strainer. Generally, although I think this is a good extra step, if with a small herd, if a goat is not feeling well, I'm going to know it before even looking in this strip cup. And then the cat gets this milk. After milking. Okay. I normally milk into this, but because it's so noisy, I'll milk into this bucket and then give it to the dog. just because if I were milking just for my family, I would have no problem milking right into this bucket, straining the milk and using it in my kitchen. But since I sell at farmers markets, I feel I've made a promise to stick to certain sanitation standards. Spice gives me about almost a gallon a day with one-time milking. And one-time milking works fine for me and for them. And I'll milk some on Bella so you can see the difference. Bella comes to visit only when she's in milk because she's a neighbor farmer's goat and he loves her, he wants to keep her, but he does not want milk. So that's a good trade for us. I know what he's doing though. He's trying to convince me to, he'll buy a cow, she'll live here and I'll milk her and he'll get butter. From what I read, this froth on the milk is a really good sign of healthy, good milk for cheese making. I may not get as much milk from these goats as a lot of people do who heavy grain feed, but from what I've seen, the goats that give less milk have higher solids in their milk for cheese making. So, and to me, the lower cost of grain, it just all balances out. I don't feel any need to push them. The more I push them, the more I have to push myself. So I kind of like this natural rhythm. And this will be Murphy milk. And I'll finish them off with the machine because my hands can't handle that many goats on a daily basis. Oh, but it would be good to show how Spice has come to love milk in the last few months. I can find a container for her. Of what it looks like when the milk stops flowing. It stopped on one side, and then I can explain later maybe that that's called line milking and it's bad. Just another case for having a small herd of goats. I think if you're looking at 10 at a time, you couldn't possibly keep track of that. And at the end, I just strip them out a little bit just to sort of keep the teats even. And when they're in the stanchion, It's a good time to look at their hooves and see who needs to be trimmed. They do actually need to be trimmed today, but can't do it today. And I just look them over, make sure they look shiny and healthy, and then they get to go. We'll give Spice a little bit of milk though. Show how she loves her milk. Since she never drank milk before, seemed to want it, I'm assuming that since she's 9, she just knows she needs more calcium. Whoever said goats don't talk to you and communicate to you were wrong. I understand what they want easier than people. Okay. And a little bit of milk for Murphy and BC the cat. Come on. Sorry, Spicy, not for you. I only use collars if they need a little coaxing to come in here or go out, because we had a collar tragedy here with a goat that got hung on another horn. Okay, come on. Come on. It's okay. Come on. Cameras can't hurt you. Goats are creatures of habit. If anything moves or changes, they notice it. Okay, you want this one. Come on. Ah, oops. Most goats are born with horns, but I'm a little ambivalent about whether I need to be burning their horns off. So I don't do it very often, and I might not do it anymore.
What purpose is there for doing it?
Some breeds of goats, usually extremely curious goats, tend to get their heads stuck in the cattle panel a lot, and they could get beaten up by the other goats or not have water for a whole day if they stayed in there between milking and feeding. But the reason that most goat keepers do it is because of possible damage to udders. I understand that sentiment, and I do get some holes in udders occasionally, but at the same time, they have a hierarchy, and they're not happy unless they can work that hierarchy out among themselves. They can't all be in the same position. They have to have their place, and every time the herd changes, new kids come in, new goats come in, they reestablish that hierarchy. And as much as humans hate to see it, some of us hate to see the fighting or one of the goats get hurt, they're happiest and healthiest when they can work all that out themselves. The only time that I intervene is when it's related to the safety of the little kids, or a doe that's about to go into labor and she seemingly has some kind of problem and the other ones are curious and won't leave her alone. Usually they naturally leave the others alone, but occasionally if it's a goat that's low on the totem pole already, I'll just separate her when she tells me she wants to be separated, but I don't separate them anymore for kidding. I used to, but they really want to be with the rest of the herd. So I'm trying to listen to what they need and what they want, because I think it's less stressful and they'll be healthier. It's Frosty. Come on, Frosty. Come on. Go ahead. It's okay. Whoa! Come on. That's okay. Get me going up here. Let me give Murphy some milk. That grunting noise that Frosty just did is a goat's warning sound. That's how they warn each other that there's some kind of danger. Right now the danger for them is the camera. Myth. Just my opinion, but it's served out here. And that is that goats that are not bottle fed will never be able to be handled and won't be friendly enough to milk. And Frosty here is a first time freshener. She never let me touch her until her kids were weaned, and then I spent 2 weeks training her to come into the stanchion. It wasn't easy, but we came to an agreement, and now she will come in here and she wants to stand on the stanchions while other goats are getting milked. So it only takes me a couple of weeks to make that change, and in actuality the goats that tend to be the easiest to handle for me are the ones that are not so familiar that they're constantly jumping on you or in your face. So I look at these goats as my friends, not as my pets, and I have a symbiotic relationship with them that I think is mutually beneficial. I know some people have misgivings about domesticating animals, but this is my favorite kind of work, so I'm really happy to be able to do it, and I try to make things as good for them as possible. Frosty has a little bit of Tennessee fainting goat in her, and that makes her have the tendency for the back legs to go a little weak when she's afraid. There is also a first-time freshener, and she's got the more of the mixed blood from the Tennessee fainting goat and meat goat. And the standard that I'm looking for with my goats is a medium-sized, stocky goat that has good milk, possibly less milk, but high-quality milk, rather than a thin, lean goat pushed to heavy production with a huge udder. Those goats, for me, in my herd, those are the ones more likely to have birthing problems, health problems. And with this breeding program, I haven't had a vet out here in 3 years, and I've had no need to have a vet, or I would have asked for one, but it seems to be working for me, and it gives micro dairy people who want to live sustainably and are not really in the market to show their goats. I have no problems with the breeders who show goats because they do wonderful work. It's just that there are so many people, actually more in fact, who want to do this for their families or their neighborhood. So it seems to be working out well for a lot of us. Incredibly easy, and goat people who want to get into the business who have found, for whatever reason, a lot of us have arthritis. And I don't know if it's because we tend to be overworkers, or if we get into this kind of lifestyle because we're trying to bring better health to ourselves. I'm not sure, but a lot of us have a lot of inflammation. And after milking by hand for 3 years, I was happy to switch to the machine. I know I can go back, but in milking 10 goats, I really find that this machine is wonderful and easy to operate. So, are you rolling with that? Mm-hmm. Okay. I wanted to mention something about the udders. Every year when I have the new kids, I always know that I can't really milk more than 10 doing things the way that I'm doing it with no chemicals on, as few chemicals as possible on the farm, no pesticides or any of that, and that makes the work take longer. But I'm happy to do it that way. It just means that I can really only milk 10 goats, and so I have to cull every year. And every year as my herd gets improved, the decisions get harder because the goats get better and better genetics as the years go on. So every year, say Sassy, I really liked her disposition and her body shape, but if she didn't develop an udder that I could use in the dairy, I wouldn't be able to afford to keep her, because I do have to, for me, this has to be sustainable business-wise. At least the cheese has to pay for the feed. Anyhow, I was really pleased that both these girls developed wonderful udders, and they were able to stay. And I'm always able to find some good homes for the ones that are not good for a business dairy. They might be good for a family dairy. But it's just the bottom line. If you don't do it that way, you can end up like a lot of the people I know. You're paying more than you bring it in for too many years, and you have to make the decision to stop, and I don't want to do that. This is I got goats in '99, but we've been on this farm from 2000 to 2006, so I think we're going to make it. You want to get out? Try not to knock over the camera. Okay? Go this way. You want to come in, English? What a good boy. What do you think? I was feeling guilty because I haven't been able to shear the llamas yet, and then I read this week that heavily wooled animals actually are insulated better from the heat, so now I'm having some trouble with that, because if he's really more comfortable as long as he has shade with the coat, I'd rather let him keep it and have his showers every day. So I'll have to find some more information on that. Sassy obviously held a lot of her milk back on this milking. They sometimes do that because she's got way too much left after the machine. The meat goat and the South American goat blood that have been the African and South American blood that's been mixed into my herd, I think has really helped with humidity and heat tolerance. I don't think I have any South American in me. But I look at it as my detoxification. I don't have to pay for a sauna. I feel so lucky. And he's a rescue llama, so that helps with my worrying that, it might not be nice to domesticate exotic animals. But as a gelded male, 12 years old, there's not much of a hope for his having a better home than this. So they've been here since February, and I can tell the difference. Their coats, their toes need to be trimmed, and I'm way behind on that because I've never done that before. And their size is a little daunting. And if you don't have them secured correctly, they can just sit down and there's nothing you can do. So we have to figure out the logistics. But beyond that, I think they're really happy and healthy. And obviously they're feeling more comfortable. I've been worried about the coyotes coming into this area, and I was really afraid, especially during the spring when the foxes might be looking for food for their kits in the den. Little baby goats, especially since I have some miniature blood mixed into my herd, would be an easy target. And I don't have a problem with the foxes feeding their young. I just rather they didn't feed them baby goats. So the llamas are really good at guarding. They would take care of any dog or fox or coyote that came in. I think they would just run them off, but if the animal were rabid or something, I think they would fight them till the death. I've seen them, the way they look at my own dog when they're worried about his nipping at the little goat's heels. Where did those, how did Frosty get in here? I didn't put Frosty in there. Did I? Casey, how did you do that? Okay, who's coming next? She had to have jumped. I didn't let her in. Okay. Come on. Who's coming? Come on. Come on. Come on, Venus. Come on, Venus. Come on. Come on. Ouch. Come on. Venus, the camera can't hurt you. Come on. Some people think it can take your soul, but I don't think so. Come on. Come on. Come on. Good girl. Come on. See, Spice is coming. Come on. Good girl. Put your head in. There. Thank you. Okay. Come on, Coco.
Okay.
I like to mention to other interested people who want to have a legal micro dairy. For goats, it is not necessary to have concrete. So the option that we came up with was a $3,500 12 by 24 Amish built barn. And in that barn, we have been able to put the 3 separate rooms that most states would require for grade A quality milk. Most of the time, they tell cheesemakers that grade B is fine.
Okay, you want to start over with what you're talking about?
Okay. This building that we have is 12 by 24, and it includes the cheese room, the milk room that we're standing in right now, which is where I clean the equipment and wash my hands. It's also where I strain the milk. We wanted to see, since there weren't many templates in fact, I found no template for a legal micro dairy making raw, farmstead raw milk goat cheese. None. I didn't find any. You could copy the plans of larger places or places that were made for, intended for cows. So we decided what was the absolute least amount of space we would need. And this 12 by 24 building works out great for me because I'm the main milker, goat manager, and cheesemaker. So we just put up the walls and insulation, put in a small hot water heater, and the milking machine that milks 2, but could be upgraded to milk as many as 8 at a time. But since I'm only milking 10, this is perfect size. This milk room itself is only 12 by 4. And we just need a sink that we can immerse the milk can in so we can clean the inside and the outside. And this works perfectly fine for me. It's large enough for 1 person and possibly 2. It's exciting to me because it was only $3,500 to have this Amish-built barn dropped on the property. I mean, that's how much it costs to purchase the building and have it set up on the property. And then between the milk machine and the hot water heater and most of the equipment that we have, the stainless sinks and everything, are used. So we only spent $16,500. And most estimates are, even for micro dairies, $50,000 to $100,000 to get set up. So we think that our option is going to be helpful for other people. And that's the exciting news about that.
Strain the milk.
You know, they think I'm their mommy, so they don't mind taking advantage. Murphy, stop now. This is Venus, and as far as my breeding program goes, she's my standard at this point. She's my best standard because she's got great dairy quality. She gives me 1 gallon a day on 1 milking, plus she raises her kids.
I know, he's really...
You be good. Stop barking. Good boy. I could let him come in. Take pictures of her, and I could talk about her later. And if you want, or do you want to do it now?
Yeah.
Venus is my best standard for the breeding that I'm working on right now. She has good dairy quality, and she has a medium stature that I'm looking for, medium height, and stockiness. She's a hardy goat. She's never had any health problems. And she gives me 1 gallon of milk a day, plus she's raising one kid that I kept from her. So anyhow, mixing those breeds together to make a hardier, medium-sized goat that handles the heat well seems to be working out so far. I put some African meat goat into the herd at the beginning for 2 reasons. One is because I couldn't afford a buck that year. He was a good buck. He had Spanish and African Boer. When he left, he was 300 pounds. But I got a lot of guff from good goat breeders about my having done that. But I had researched enough to know that after 7 generations, 7 different breeding years, that there would be very little of the appearance of the meat goat, but some of the positive attributes. So I'm real happy with it so far, and I hope I'm into goats, or as Olivier says, in life long enough to see the breeding program through to the end. As long as I am in life, that's what he says. Okay. Chickens need water. Murphy's busy. Come on. There you go. Come on. I could, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, I do have one other. Actually, I could say it now. This is reality. Is it okay?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yeah.
Water. I mentioned a little bit about this before, I believe, but I think that if you want to work at grade A standards and you want your milk for your cheese to be grade A, that no matter how small your dairy is, you should be able to be grade A, and it shouldn't have to cost you a lot. I mean, that seems to me to be a basic right or liberty. So in order to get grade A, or at least get the certification that my standards are up to grade A, I have to do certain things. I was able to do them without a lot of money. One of the things is they want a hand washing sink, and they want that in here in the milk room, what they call the milk room where you strain the milk, and they want that in the cheese room. So it didn't cost us that much to comply, and most of the requirements for grade A were simply things like self-closing doors, and they want the doors to close in a certain direction. So after 4 years of trying to figure out what they wanted and how to do it inexpensively and small, when there wasn't a template for that, that's the other reason I think that we can help other people, and so many people have asked, because a lot of things are just nitpicky little things that are good for sanitary standards anyway, but they're kind of complicated to read in the pasteurized milk ordinance, which is about that thick and is specifically written for cows. So this is where I clean the equipment, and I do it using buckets so that I don't have to waste a lot of water. They require washing, rinsing, and sanitizing in this room and in the next room. And then I strain the milk in here. I have to leave this door closed, but for today, it's open for us. Do you want me to say the thing about the little door? Again, I'm not allowed to take the milk directly from the milking parlor and the milk room into the cheese room. So the best way for us was to be able to put it through this access door where the milk can go right onto a sanitation mat. So as soon as I strain it in this room, I put it right back in there. I'm going to put this right over here. And the inspectors are right. Flies are a major problem. They're actually the most difficult issue that I have here, besides physical my own physical limitations. Okay, yesterday I could only put enough milk in this to go almost to the top, so I'm going to top it off. Put it through the door. This milk is already strained because I strained it when I milked. And then I'll put this milk through the door, and then it'll sit on the sanitation mat until I go into the next room and put the jar onto the drain table where the curd will form. It's already forming in this weather, and with the good pasture that the goats have, it changes very fast. So it's already begun to curd from just since yesterday. By tomorrow it'll definitely be curds and whey. And this milk will go for my cereal. But there's a thing behind you, a funnel behind you. Murphy. This is just my experience now, but goat's milk, fresh and warm, or fresh, quickly chilled, is very sweet. And you would actually never know that it was goat's milk. It's just wonderful, sweet milk. But over a day or two, it develops a capric flavor. And that is faster depending on your sanitation practices and the breeds of your goats. Some have notoriously sweet milk, and others' milk is not as sweet. My Toggenburgs went capric faster, and I didn't want to believe that because I really liked Toggenburgs. That's just been my experience, that mixing the milk from the different breeds, I think, gives me the best milk for cheese making. I can't sell fresh chev, but I can still make fresh chev for my family. And, gee. Oh, there it is. Oh, I have one thing. I now understand the saying, don't cry over spilled milk. Because by the time I get this milk, I've cared for the goats for so many months that this milk is very valuable. And if I spill it, I'm extremely distraught. And this jar I will just add to tomorrow's milk. Even though I don't have to do that, it will work as a starter. And these I'll take to my refrigerator. Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me tell you something when you're not too hard to work with them. He's a great kitty cat. Yes, Murphy, you're a good doggy sometimes. And when I'm done, I have to either close this room out, or what I generally do is use my sanitizer water from in the milk room from cleaning the equipment, because by that time it doesn't have any milk left in it, and I'd rather use it than put it down the drain. They let us not have concrete floors, but then they expect us to keep them clean every day, which suits me fine anyway. Keeps the flies down too. love primitive technology whenever possible. Use it. Vacuum cleaners don't work when the power's out.
How would you deal with the air conditioning situation over there if the power went out?
Over where?
For the cheese.
The air conditioning is not for the cheese, it's for the fly problem. Excuse me. Works for me. Some people say that they use starters and Rennet and all that stuff for more control. But for me, I really think I think I'm a control fanatic with my cheese, and that actually I have more control because I can taste it and have to fight with it and pull it in one direction or another. I know which direction it wants to go, how it tastes and how it looks. I just use that to my benefit. So, no, if the air conditioning went out, I'd be okay.